Welcome to our channel, HASHMICLINICS.
All right, in our clinical work, some remedy pictures are just so vivid, so unmistakable, they get etched in our minds. Today, we're jumping into one of those remedies, Aloe Socotrina. We're going to delve into its classic picture of portal congestion and this profound sense of relaxation, and you'll see why it's a remedy you just can't afford to overlook when its unique symptoms show up. So let's kick things off with the one symptom that I promise once you hear it, you will never, ever forget. This quote right here, it captures the absolute core of the Aloe patient's suffering. It's this deep, deep sense of insecurity, this complete lack of trust in their own body that really forms the central thread weaving through every other part of the remedy. To really get a handle on this remedy, we're going to build our understanding from the ground up. We'll start with its deep underlying essence, then we'll explore the kind of person it creates, and then we'll dive right into the specifics, all the way to how it stacks up against other remedies in the clinic. By the end of this, you're going to have a really clear three-dimensional picture of Aloe. So, what's really driving the Aloe state? What's the core pathological process? Let's pinpoint that fundamental disturbance. Because once you grasp this, believe me, every other symptom just clicks into place. You know, this summary just nails the two sides of the Aloe coin. On one hand, you've got congestion, this heavy, overfull feeling, especially in the portal circulation. And on the other hand, you've got relaxation, a profound weakness, a loss of muscular tone, most famously, of course, in the rectal sphincter. Just remember that duality, fullness and weakness. These three themes right here, they are the building blocks for the entire remedy picture. Think about it for a second. That venous congestion, it leads directly to those painful hemorrhoids in the bloated abdomen. The sphincter relaxation, well, that's the source of that terrible, awful insecurity. And the mucus irritation produces that classic, unmistakable jelly-like discharge. You see, everything connects right back to these fundamentals. Okay, so now that we get the pathology, let's look at the person. How does this internal state of congestion and relaxation actually show up in the patient's mind and body? Let's paint the constitutional picture of an Aloe individual. So here you see the physical fallout of the remedy's essence. And this isn't just, being a little tired. It's a deep constitutional weariness and sluggishness. And look at the trigger, a sedentary life. The very lack of motion makes their state of congestion even worse, which makes any kind of work, mental or physical, feel completely overwhelming. And, as it so often does, the mind perfectly mirrors the body. This physical sluggishness breeds a mental state of just dissatisfaction and irritability, and it's often aimed right at themselves. When their system is all bogged down and congested, their mood just darkens. Life itself can feel like this heavy burden, and that aversion to doing anything becomes almost like a protective mechanism against total burnout. And now we come to the absolute epicenter of the Aloe pathology, the abdominal sphere. This is the remedy's grand theater of action. This is where we find its most characteristic and most guiding symptoms. This is such a critical clinical point. While Aloe has a really wide range of action, it's almost always the rectal symptoms that seal the deal, that confirm the prescription. When a patient gives you this unique picture, you can be incredibly confident in your choice. It is the remedy's definitive signature. Just look at the peculiar contradictions here. You've got this violent, sudden urging that literally drives them out of bed, yet the stool itself can pass almost without them even noticing. This combination of extreme urgency and a lack of sensation is so characteristic. And of course, that frog spawn, jelly-like mucus, that's a keynote you'll never mistake for anything else. And here it is, the full expression of that hallmark insecurity. The patient is living with this constant fear and awareness of their sphincter. That bearing down sensation, the sense of a plug, these are the direct sensory experiences of that underlying state of pelvic congestion and muscular relaxation we talked about at the beginning. This classic quote just paints a perfect picture of the venous congestion. I mean, the image of hemorrhoids like a bunch of grapes is pretty unforgettable. But the most crucial piece of information here, the thing you need for prescribing, is the modality, better from cold water. This single symptom can be the deciding factor between Aloe and several other major hemorrhoid remedies. These symptoms really just round out the whole picture of this profound abdominal congestion. The liver feels full, the navel is throbbing, The colic is excruciating, but pay really close attention to the sequence here. The pain builds up to a crescendo. It's completely relieved by passing the stool, and then it leaves the patient in this state of sweaty exhaustion. That pattern is absolutely key. All right, now we get to a truly fascinating and really a high-grade feature of aloe, its tendency to produce alternating symptoms. When you see this pattern in a case, it is such a powerful clue that can just shoot aloe right to the top of your list. This is a perfect example of what you've got to look for. A patient comes in, they're complaining of a dull, congestive headache. But when you dig a little deeper, you find out the headache only shows up when their hemorrhoids get better, or their lumbago flares up the minute their diarrhea stops. This seesaw pattern between different parts of the body is a very, very strong pointer to aloe. Of course, no prescription is complete without confirming the modalities. So let's take a look at what makes the aloe patient's symptoms better or worse, because these are often the final deciding factors in a case. The aggravating factors are incredibly consistent. That 5 a.m. urgent diarrhea is just a classic. Heat is a huge general aggravation. It makes everything worse, from their headaches to their rectal symptoms. And notice how standing makes them worse? I mean, that's a direct result of gravity increasing that pelvic and portal congestion. It just makes sense. And on the flip side, the relief from cold is just as powerful. A patient who tells you they get relief from applying cold water directly to their hemorrhoids is basically handing you a huge confirmation for aloe. And don't forget the relief of that awful colic after passing stool or flatus. The release of pressure brings immediate relief. Okay, so let's bring it all together for clinical practice. How do we differentiate aloe from other very similar remedies when we're sitting with a patient? Let's get into the fine-tuning. This comparison is absolutely essential for accurate prescribing. Yeah, both sulfur and aloe have that early morning urging, but with sulfur, the primary complaint is this intense itching and burning. With aloe, it's the insecurity, the lack of control. Now, compare it to Nox vomica. Nox has constant painful urging, but can't go. The aloe patient can't control when they go. You see? It's a critical distinction. So let's nail this down with a few prescribing pearls. First and foremost, you have to confirm that sense of rectal insecurity. It is your most reliable guide. Second, actively hunt for those alternating symptoms. A headache case might actually be an aloe case in disguise. And finally, always keep that dual picture in your mind, the heavy, boggy congestion paired with the weak atonic relaxation. And just a quick note on potency. For those acute gastrointestinal flare-ups, the classical literature often points to the lower potencies, something like a 3rd to 6th centesimal for really effective relief. But for those deeper, chronic cases where the constitutional picture, the mental state, and those alternating symptoms are really prominent, you might think about going higher to address the root disturbance. So I'll leave you with a final clinical challenge to think about. In a case of colitis with morning diarrhea, how would you decide between aloe and sulfur? Well, the answer lies in the very essence we've just explored. Is the case defined by a humiliating insecurity and a total loss of control? That's your aloe. Or is the picture dominated by an intense, volcanic burning and itching? That's your sulfur. Always go back to the core feeling of the case, and the remedy will just reveal itself.
Professor Dr. Rafat Hashmi is a distinguished homeopathic physician, educator, and researcher with over 4 decades of clinical and teaching experience. He is widely respected for his deep command of materia medica, repertory, and constitutional prescribing, combined with a practical, patient-centered approach. Dr. Hashmi has dedicated his career to training generations of homeopathic doctors, blending classical principles with modern clinical insight. He is also known for his innovative work in digital homeopathy, developing educational content, clinical tools, and AI-assisted systems to enhance remedy selection and case analysis. With a strong commitment to ethical practice and lifelong learning, Professor Dr. Rafat Hashmi continues to guide, inspire, and elevate the standards of homeopathic education and patient care.